The night was long, and the building was silent except for the soft sound of a mop sliding across the shiny floor. A man bent down, his hands rough from years of work, his back aching from endless hours of cleaning. He was a father, struggling to survive in a world where humans were nothing more than servants for the alien elite. Every day he carried a bucket, a mop, and a broken heart. He had once dreamed of a better life. He wanted to give his daughter safety, joy, and a future brighter than his own. But life was cruel. His daughter was sick, coughing every night in their small room with cracked walls. Medicine was too expensive. Every coin he earned went into keeping her alive for one more day. So he worked. He cleaned. He bowed his head when aliens walked past him. And he pretended not to notice the way they sneered at humans. The alien corporation was the heart of power in the city. Its tall glass towers reached into the clouds, glowing with strange lights. Inside, alien executives discussed trade, power, and wealth. To them, humans were tools, cheap labor to be used and forgotten. The father knew this, and he accepted his fate. At least until that night. It was past midnight when he reached the CEO's private hall. His mop squeaked on the marble floor as he moved slowly, careful not to disturb the silence. Suddenly, voices echoed from the chamber ahead. He froze. He was not supposed to be here when the CEO held meetings. The rules were strict. No human worker should hear what the alien leaders discussed. If caught, he could lose his job or worse, disappear forever. But the voices pulled at him. The sound was strange, sharp, and layered, like two voices speaking at once. It was the alien tongue, ancient and feared. Humans never understood it. Scholars said the language itself was alive, made to be spoken only by alien rulers. Yet as the father stood there, mop in hand, something stirred in his mind. The words were not just noise. They were meaning. They were clear. He blinked, his heart racing. He understood them. Every sentence. Every secret. The CEO's voice was deep, cold, and full of pride. He was telling the others that humans were weak, that they would never rise above servitude. They scrub our floors. They polish our boots. They dream of nothing greater. They will never know what power feels like. The father gripped his mop tighter. Rage burned inside him, but he stayed silent. His hands shook as he realized what had just happened. For the first time in history, a human understood the forbidden language of the aliens. He should have run. He should have left. But something kept him rooted there, listening, his ears catching every cruel word. Then it happened. His bucket slipped. The sound of water splashing echoed in the hall. The voices stopped. Heavy footsteps approached. The doors swung open and the CEO stepped out, taller than any man, his skin glowing faintly under the lights. His alien eyes narrowed at the sight of a simple human janitor standing there. "What did you hear?" the CEO asked, his voice sharp like a blade. The father's lips trembled. He wanted to say nothing. He wanted to beg for mercy. But instead words slipped from his mouth. Words not in human tongue, but in the alien's ancient speech. "I heard everything." The hall went silent. The guards at the door froze, their weapons half raised. The other aliens inside leaned forward in shock. A human had spoken the forbidden tongue. It was impossible. The CEO's expression changed. His anger melted into something else. Curiosity, suspicion, perhaps even fear. He stepped closer, his glowing eyes fixed on the trembling janitor. "Say that again," he ordered. The father's throat was dry, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to stay silent, but the words came again, clear and strong in the alien language. "I heard everything." The CEO raised his hand, stopping his guards. He studied the man as though he were no longer a worker, but a puzzle that must be solved. For the first time in his life, the father felt the weight of alien eyes on him not as a servant, but as something more. The moment stretched into silence. The janitor knew his life would never be the same again. Either he had just doomed himself, or he had unlocked something that could shake the empire. The janitor's voice still echoed in the grand hall. His words had cut the silence like a knife. A human, nothing more than a poor father, a cleaner of floors, had spoken the alien tongue. Not broken or clumsy, but perfect. The sound rolled off his lips as though he had spoken it all his life. For a moment, nobody moved. The alien guards, tall and armored, stared in disbelief. Their hands hovered over their weapons, unsure whether to strike or kneel. The executives inside the chamber looked at each other, their faces pale with unease. The language was not meant for human mouths. It was old, sacred, and dangerous. The CEO stepped forward. His presence filled the corridor like a storm. His eyes glowed faintly blue, the mark of his kind, and his voice carried a weight that made most beings tremble. Yet as he spoke, there was something softer beneath the edge of his tone. "How do you know our ancient tongue, human?" The father's throat tightened. His hand shook, still gripping the mop like it was a shield. He had no answer. He had never studied, never learned, never even dreamed of such things. The words had come to him like whispers in his blood. His mind screamed at him to say nothing, but his mouth betrayed him again. I don't know. The words just came. Gasps filled the hall. The guards muttered among themselves, their voices harsh and afraid. The CEO raised his hand and they fell silent at once. His piercing gaze never left the janitor. He circled him slowly, like a predator testing prey. "No human has ever spoken this tongue," the CEO said. "Not in 1,000 years. And yet you speak it as if born to it. Who are you, janitor?" The father lowered his eyes. "I am no one. I clean your floors. That is all." The CEO laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was cold, sharp, and dangerous. "No one? You speak words that only kings and priests once spoke. You claim to be nothing, yet you stand before me holding power you do not understand." The janitor wanted to run. He wanted to go back to his sick daughter, to the life he knew, even if it was filled with struggle and pain. But it was too late. His secret was out. The aliens had heard him. The CEO had seen him. His fate was sealed. The alien guards moved closer, their weapons humming with deadly energy. One of them snarled, "He is a danger. End him now before the language spreads." But the CEO raised his hand again. "No, he is not to be touched." His voice thundered through the chamber, silencing all. He leaned closer to the janitor, his glowing eyes burning with questions. "You will come with me." The janitor's heart raced. His knees felt weak, but he nodded. What else could he do? To refuse would mean death. To obey, he did not yet know. The CEO turned sharply and walked back into the chamber. The guards grabbed the janitor by his arms and dragged him inside. The room was vast, filled with alien symbols carved into black stone, glowing faintly with energy. A long table stretched across the hall where alien executives sat, their faces grim and suspicious. "Stand before them," the CEO commanded. The janitor was pushed to the center of the room. He kept his eyes low, feeling the weight of every gaze. He was nothing but a servant, yet now he stood in the heart of power. The CEO pointed to the carved wall. Strange markings twisted across the stone, symbols no human had ever seen. "Read," the CEO ordered. The janitor's mouth went dry. He shook his head. "I cannot." "I don't know what this is." But then his eyes fell on the markings. They were strange, yes, but as he stared, they began to shift. The lines bent, the curves straightened, and suddenly they were no longer symbols. They were words. Words he could understand. His lips moved before he could stop them. The ancient text poured out of him in the alien tongue, smooth and flawless. His voice echoed through the hall as if the walls themselves wanted to listen. The aliens gasped. Some rose from their seats in shock. The CEO's eyes widened, but he did not stop him. He let the human speak, his expression unreadable. When the janitor finished, silence fell again. The room trembled as if the stones themselves had awakened. The glowing symbols on the wall flared brighter for a moment before fading back to stillness. The CEO leaned forward. "You are no ordinary man." The janitor shook his head desperately. "I swear I don't know how I did that. I am just a father. My daughter is sick. I only wanted to work and earn for her." The CEO studied him, his expression sharp and calculating. "Perhaps you are a fool. Or perhaps you are something more dangerous than you realize." The janitor felt his knees weaken. He had no control over what was happening. All he knew was that the world he had once known, the world of mops, floors, and silent suffering, was gone forever. The CEO stepped closer, lowering his voice so only the janitor could hear. "You have spoken the first word, but soon you will speak many more. And when you do, the galaxy will change." The janitor shivered. He did not know if this was a promise or a threat. The janitor's life had changed in a single night. He was no longer just a man with a mop and bucket. He was now a puzzle, a mystery that even the aliens could not explain. The CEO had taken him from the hall and locked him in a private chamber. The walls were smooth black stone, humming faintly with strange energy. A single light glowed above him, casting shadows that made the room feel alive. Hours passed in silence. The janitor sat on the floor, his hands trembling. He thought of his daughter lying sick in their tiny room. He thought of her coughing, of her weak smile when he returned home with bread. Fear squeezed his chest. Would he ever see her again? The door hissed open. The CEO entered, tall and cold, his glowing eyes piercing the silence. 2 guards followed, their weapons ready. The janitor scrambled to his feet, bowing his head. The CEO studied him for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with curiosity. You should not exist, and yet here you are, a human who speaks the sacred tongue. The janitor shook his head quickly. I don't know how. I never learned, it just came to me. The CEO's expression hardened. Do not lie to me. The ancient language is forbidden. Even among my people, only a chosen few can speak it. If the others knew a human had this gift, they would demand your death. The janitor's heart pounded. Please, I beg you. I don't want power. I only want to save my daughter. His voice cracked as he spoke, and for a moment the truth in his words seemed to echo in the room. The CEO tilted his head, as though weighing the man's soul. Then he turned to the guards. Bring the relic. The guards returned moments later, carrying a stone tablet covered in glowing lines. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The air grew heavy, and even the guards looked uneasy as they set it down. The CEO's voice was sharp. This relic is older than empires. Our greatest scholars have tried to unlock it. None succeeded. If you can read it, human, then perhaps your life will have value. The janitor's hands shook as he reached out. The markings were alien, twisting and alive. At first, his mind screamed in confusion. But slowly, just as before, the lines bent and shifted. They became words. He felt them inside his blood, flowing through his veins. His lips parted and he began to read. The alien tongue poured from him, smooth and strong. The tablet trembled beneath his touch, glowing brighter with each word. A low hum filled the chamber and the guards stepped back in fear. The CEO's eyes widened. He leaned forward, every line of his face sharp with wonder. The janitor spoke on, his voice ringing with power he did not understand. When he finished, the relic flashed once and the hum vanished, leaving the chamber silent. The janitor staggered back, gasping for breath. He felt as though the words had drained his very soul. The CEO approached the relic slowly, his hand hovering over the glowing stone. You did what no one else could. You awakened it. His voice trembled with something the janitor had never expected. Excitement. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. One whispered, "This is dangerous. He should be destroyed before the others learn." But the CEO snapped his head toward them, his voice booming. "No, he is mine. This man is no servant. He is a key." The janitor's fear deepened. A key to what? He wanted to shout, to demand answers, but his throat was too dry. The CEO turned back to him, his eyes blazing. Do you know what you have done? You have opened a door that has been closed for ages. You are connected to something greater, something even we do not fully understand. The janitor shook his head desperately. I don't want it. I just want my daughter safe. I never asked for this. The CEO's expression hardened again, turning cold. You have no choice. The language chose you, and now so do I. The janitor's stomach twisted. He was no longer free. His gift was not a blessing, it was a chain. The CEO stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. Understand this, human. Your gift is a dangerous one. Some will fear you. Others will want to use you. If you fail me, you will be erased. But if you succeed, you and your daughter will never want for anything again. The janitor's chest tightened. For the first time, he saw the trap laid before him. His gift could save his daughter, or it could destroy them both. He lowered his head, whispering, What must I do? The CEO smiled faintly, a smile that held no kindness. Prove yourself again. Translate the rest. Unlock what has been hidden. Show me your worth, or I will show you your grave. The janitor's hands curled into fists. He was a father, a worker, a man who had only ever wanted a simple life. But now he was caught in a game far larger than himself. His gift was no blessing. It was a dangerous burden. And deep down, in the quiet of his soul, he knew this was only the beginning. The chamber felt colder than before. The relic still glowed faintly on the stone table, as if watching the man who had awakened it. The janitor stood in silence, his hands trembling, his heart heavy with fear. He had never wanted this. He was only a father, a cleaner of floors. But now, The CEO looked at him as though he were no longer human but something else. The CEO leaned back in his chair, his glowing eyes never leaving the janitor. "You unlocked the relic," he said slowly, his voice echoing in the chamber. "That was no accident. The language chose you, but one success does not prove you. Now you must be tested." The janitor's mouth went dry. He whispered, "I don't want tests. I only want to go home. My daughter is waiting for me." The CEO's expression hardened. "Your daughter lives because I allow it. Fail me and she suffers. Pass my test and she lives in comfort beyond your dreams." The janitor's chest tightened. His daughter's face filled his mind. Her weak smile, her small hands clutching his when the sickness hurt her. He could not fail. He could not let her die. The CEO clapped his hands. The heavy doors opened and guards entered carrying another relic. This one was larger, shaped like a black cube covered in glowing red lines. It pulsed with strange light, as if it were breathing. Even the guards looked uneasy as they set it down. "This," the CEO said, "is called the Veil Stone. It has broken the minds of every scholar who tried to read it. Some went blind. Some went mad. If you can unlock it, you will prove your worth. If not..." His voice trailed off, cold and final. The janitor stared at the cube. Fear surged through him. His body screamed to run, but he could not. His daughter's life was the chain that bound him here. Slowly he stepped forward. The room grew silent. The alien executives leaned closer, their faces tight with suspicion. The guards rested their hands on their weapons, ready to strike if anything went wrong. The janitor reached out a trembling hand and touched the stone. At once, his mind filled with fire. Images flooded him. Symbols, stars, voices that were not human. His knees buckled, but he held on, his fingers pressing against the strange surface. The cube pulsed brighter, responding to him. The symbols twisted in his mind. At first they were madness, impossible to understand. But then slowly they began to shift. They bent, they reshaped, and words formed in his thoughts. He could hear them as if whispered into his ears by something ancient. His lips moved. The alien language spilled out, stronger than before, louder, clearer. His voice filled the chamber like thunder. The cube trembled under his hand, glowing brighter with each word. Gasps rose around the room. Some of the aliens shouted in fear. "Stop him. It's too dangerous." But the CEO raised his hand sharply. "Let him continue." His glowing eyes burned with hunger. The janitor spoke on, his voice rising, echoing against the stone walls. His body shook, sweat dripping down his face, but he could not stop. It was as if the words were using him, flowing through him like a river. The cube flared with a blinding light. For a moment, the chamber shook as though an earthquake had struck. The guards stumbled back. The executives shielded their eyes. The janitor cried out as the power surged through him. Then suddenly it stopped. The cube went still. The light faded. The chamber fell silent again. The janitor collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. His body felt like it had been torn apart and put back together. His vision swam, and for a moment he thought he might faint. The CEO stood, his expression unreadable. Slowly he approached the cube. He touched it, and his eyes widened. "It is awake," he whispered. "For centuries it has been silent, and now this human has awakened it." The aliens muttered among themselves, fear and anger in their voices. One slammed his fist on the table. "This is dangerous. He is not chosen, he is cursed. If word spreads, humans will rise above their station. He must be destroyed." Another shouted, "Yes! End him now before the old prophecies come true." The janitor's heart raced. Prophecies cursed? He did not understand. He tried to rise, but his legs shook too much. He looked up, his voice weak. "Please, I don't want this. I never asked for this. I only want my daughter safe." The CEO turned to him, his glowing eyes cold but curious. "Whether you asked for it or not does not matter. The language chose you. The relics respond to you. That makes you dangerous," the janitor's breath caught. "Then, will you kill me?" The CEO was silent for a long moment. Then slowly a thin smile spread across his face. "No, not yet. You are too valuable to kill. But know this, human, you are no longer free. You belong to me now." The janitor's stomach twisted. His gift was a curse, his daughter a hostage, his life no longer his own. The CEO leaned closer, whispering so only he could hear. "Remember this test, janitor. You passed because the language flows in your blood, but next time, you may not survive." The janitor closed his eyes. He felt the weight of chains, invisible but heavy. He was trapped. And deep down, He knew this was only the beginning of something far more dangerous than he could imagine. The janitor could no longer call himself a simple man. He had passed the impossible test, awakened relics that had been silent for centuries, and spoken words that even alien scholars feared. Yet instead of feeling powerful, he felt chained. His life was no longer his own. Every step he took was watched, every breath measured. And worse, his daughter's life now dangled on a thread held by alien hands. The CEO had ordered him to remain in the high tower. He was given a chamber larger than his entire home, with food that humans could only dream of. To outsiders, it might have looked like luxury, but to him it was a cage. Guards stood outside his door day and night. He was not free to leave, not free to see his daughter. She had been moved into the aliens' care, for protection, they said. But he knew the truth. She was a hostage. Days passed, and the CEO summoned him often. Each time, the man was made to read from relics or old stone walls covered in alien marks. Each time, his gift poured through him, unlocking secrets that shocked even the oldest of the aliens. They treated him with awe and fear, but never with respect. To them, he was a tool, a weapon that could be controlled. But outside the chamber, whispers began to spread. Alien politicians heard the rumors. A human has spoken the forbidden tongue. A human has awakened the stones. Some believed it was a sign of prophecy. Others believed it was a curse that would bring ruin to their empire. One night, as he returned to his chamber, 2 alien guards whispered to each other, not knowing he understood. He should not live. The CEO is blind. This human will bring only destruction. The janitor's heart raced. They were already plotting. He hurried inside, his thoughts heavy with fear. If they killed him, his daughter would be left alone, or worse, used as bait in their political games. The next day, the CEO summoned him again, this time to a grand hall filled with alien leaders. The air was thick with tension. The janitor stood in the center while dozens of eyes burned into him. Some were filled with curiosity, others with open hatred. The CEO raised his hand, commanding silence. This human has spoken the sacred tongue. He has awakened relics thought lost to time. He has proven himself more valuable than any of you could imagine. But some of you doubt. Murmurs filled the room. One alien leader stood, his face twisted with anger. Yes, we doubt. This is not a gift, it is corruption. The sacred tongue belongs only to us. If humans learn it, our rule will crumble. Another shouted, he is a danger to our empire. Kill him now before his curse spreads. The janitor's stomach twisted. His knees felt weak. He wanted to beg for his life, but his pride as a father held him still. He thought of his daughter, fragile and small, and he forced himself not to show fear. The CEO's eyes narrowed. He raised his hand and the room fell silent. Enough, you all see danger. I see opportunity. With his gift, we can unlock power greater than empires. We can command relics that even the ancients feared. He belongs to me, and through him we will rise higher than ever before. Gasps filled the chamber. Some of the leaders looked convinced, others furious, but none dared to openly defy the CEO. The janitor, however, felt no relief. He knew the truth. If the CEO saw him as valuable, then his life would last only as long as his gift remained useful. And if the leaders could not kill him directly, they would strike at the one thing that kept him strong, his daughter. That night, he was allowed to visit her. She lay in a clean bed, surrounded by alien machines that monitored her breathing. For the first time, her face looked peaceful. But when she opened her eyes and saw him, her smile was weak. "Papa," she whispered, "why are they helping me?" His heart broke. He held her hand tightly. "Because they need me. And as long as they need me, you will be safe." But deep inside, he knew it was only temporary. One wrong move, one failed test, and both their lives would end. As he sat by her side, a shadow moved at the door. An alien figure lingered there, watching. When the janitor looked up, the figure whispered in the alien tongue, soft enough for only him to hear. "Be careful, human. The higher you rise, the harder you will fall. And when you fall, your daughter will fall with you." The janitor's blood ran cold. He gripped his daughter's hand tighter, his heart burning with silent rage. He had been a servant all his life, but now he was trapped in a war he did not understand. He made a promise to himself that night. He would play their game, obey their commands, and endure their tests. But when the time came, he would not be their tool. He would be something more. For his daughter's sake, he would find a way to break free. But the shadows around him were growing darker. Enemies were waiting. And soon, his test would not be on relics or stones, but on survival itself. The days that followed were filled with whispers of rebellion. The janitor had awakened relics no alien could control. His gift was no longer a secret. Rumors spread across the city like fire in dry grass. Some called him cursed, others called him chosen. And while the CEO saw him as a tool for power, many of the alien leaders saw only danger. The janitor felt the pressure tightening around him. His every step was watched. His daughter's safety was always dangled before him like a chain around his neck. But inside his heart, something had changed. He was no longer the man who only scrubbed floors and bowed his head. He had touched power, and though it frightened him, it also gave him strength. One night he was brought to the lower chambers of the tower. The CEO waited there with several alien generals, their armor shining under the dim lights. In the center of the room stood a giant machine, covered in dust and scars, silent for centuries. It looked like a war engine, with sharp wings folded like a beast asleep. "This is the Titan of Ashes," the CEO said, his voice heavy with pride. "It was built before empires rose, but it has been dead for hundreds of years. None of us could awaken it. If you can, human, then you will prove beyond doubt that your gift is meant for greatness." The janitor's stomach turned. He did not want greatness. He only wanted freedom, but he knew he had no choice. His daughter's life depended on him obeying. Slowly, he stepped toward the machine. The markings across its surface glowed faintly as he approached, as if recognizing him. His hand trembled as he touched the cold metal. At once the language filled his mind. Words burned in his chest. Ancient commands that demanded to be spoken. His lips parted and the alien tongue thundered from his mouth. The machine stirred. The floor trembled. The generals gasped, some stepping back in fear. The Titan's wings unfolded, its core burning with light. The beast of war had awakened, not to the command of aliens, but to the voice of a human. The janitor staggered, but his voice grew stronger. The Titan rose slowly, its massive body filling the chamber, eyes glowing with fire. It bent down slightly, almost like a giant bowing to him. The room erupted in shouts. "Impossible," one general cried. "He commands it. He commands our machines." The janitor's heart pounded. He had not meant to take control, but the machine obeyed him. He felt its power as though it were part of him. For the first time, he was not just a prisoner. He was a master of something even the aliens feared. The CEO's eyes burned with greed. "Yes, yes. With him we can control them all. With him we will rule the stars." But the janitor's thoughts were not on empire. His thoughts were on his daughter, her fragile smile, her quiet voice asking why the aliens helped her. He realized something then. If he could command machines like this, he could also command freedom. That night, whispers reached him again. Servants, slaves, and workers, both human and alien, came to him in secret. They had seen the Titan bow. They had heard the sacred words from a human mouth. To them, he was not a servant anymore, he was a symbol. One human worker knelt before him, her voice trembling. "You speak the words they fear. You make their machines obey. You are the one we have been waiting for." The janitor shook his head. "No, I'm just a father. I don't want war." But another spoke, his voice fierce. "War is already here. Whether you want it or not, they will kill you. They will kill us all, unless we fight back." The janitor's heart was torn. He had never been a fighter. But when he thought of his daughter, alone and fragile in alien hands, a fire lit inside him. If he stayed silent, she would remain a prisoner forever. If he rose, maybe, just maybe, she could be free. The next time the CEO summoned him, the janitor walked differently. His shoulders no longer bent under invisible chains, his eyes no longer lowered in fear. The CEO noticed. "You look changed, janitor," he said coldly. The janitor met his gaze for the first time. "I am changed." His voice was steady, strong, and then, in the ancient tongue, he spoke words of command, not to the CEO, not to the guards, but to the machines hidden in the depths of the tower. The walls shook. Alarm screamed. Deep below, engines roared to life. Ancient machines long buried stirred at his voice. The guards raised their weapons in panic, but the machines did not listen to them. They listened only to him. The janitor stood tall, his voice echoing through the chamber. For the first time, the aliens felt fear not of relics, not of prophecies, but of a human. A man who had once scrubbed their floors, now commanding their war machines with a single word. The revolt had begun. The tower shook as ancient machines obeyed the janitor's voice. Their heavy steps echoed through the city, breaking the silence of the alien night. For centuries, these machines had slept, waiting for a master. Now, they marched to the call of a human. The aliens panicked. Guards shouted orders, weapons lit up, but their machines ignored them. The general screamed in fear. The executives fled the chamber like rats escaping a sinking ship. The CEO, however, stood still, his glowing eyes locked on the janitor. "You've gone too far," the CEO said, his voice sharp as a blade. "You think you can defy me? You think you can use my machines against me?" The janitor stood tall, his voice steady though his heart raced. "They are not yours. They listen to me, and I am not your tool anymore." The CEO's lips curled into a dangerous smile. "Then you are my enemy, and enemies of the Empire do not live long." At his signal, guards rushed forward. But before they could strike, the janitor spoke again in the sacred tongue. The machines around the hall roared to life. Metal arms swung down, blocking the guards, smashing weapons, forcing them back. Sparks filled the air as alien soldiers screamed in terror. For the first time, the janitor saw it clearly. The aliens were not gods. They were afraid of a man who had once been invisible to them, afraid of the voice they could not control. The CEO, however, did not retreat. He stepped closer, his face calm but his eyes burning with fury. "You can control relics and machines. Impressive. But you are still only a human, weak and fragile. Without your gift, you are nothing. Do you truly think you can rule us?" The janitor's voice trembled, but did not break. "I don't want to rule you. I want freedom. For me, for my daughter, for everyone you have chained." The CEO laughed, cruel and mocking. "Freedom? There is no freedom. There is only power, and you will learn that before the end." At that moment, two guards dragged someone into the hall. The janitor's heart stopped. It was his daughter. Her face pale, her body weak, but her eyes wide with fear. They shoved her forward, and she fell to the floor. The CEO's smile deepened. "Here is your choice, janitor. Kneel before me, serve me as you were meant to, and your daughter will live. Defy me, and she dies before your eyes." The janitor's knees shook, his breath caught in his throat, his entire body screamed with fear. His daughter whimpered, "Papa," and tears filled his eyes. This was the trap he had always feared. His gift had given him power, but the aliens still held the one thing he could not bear to lose: his daughter's life. The CEO stepped closer, his voice low and cold. "So, what will it be? Wealth, safety, power beyond your dreams, or rebellion, and the death of the only person you love?" The hall grew silent. Even the machines seemed to wait, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The janitor closed his eyes, breathing hard. For a moment, he was back to being the man with a mop, bent under the weight of the world, invisible to everyone. But then he remembered the nights of hunger, the sneers of aliens, the chains that bound humans to servitude. He remembered the fire inside him when the relics listened to his voice. He opened his eyes and they burned with something new: resolve. He looked at his daughter and whispered, "I promised you a better life, and I will keep that promise." Then he raised his head to the CEO. His voice rang out, strong and unbroken. "I will never kneel to you." The CEO's face twisted in rage. He raised his hand to signal the guards to strike. But before they could move, the janitor spoke, the ancient word that had burned in his mind since the first relic awakened. A word of command, a word of power. The hall shook violently. The machines roared like beasts. Energy surged through the walls. The guards dropped their weapons as the machines turned on them. The CEO himself staggered back, his eyes wide. For the first time, fear touched his face. The machines bent down not to the CEO but to the janitor. The ancient word echoed through the city, carried on the wind. Humans and aliens alike heard it. And in that moment, the janitor was no longer invisible. He was no longer just a father. He was the voice of something greater. The CEO fell to his knees, his pride shattered. What, what are you? He whispered. The janitor stood tall, his daughter clutching his hand. His voice was steady. I am a father. That is enough. The machines roared again and the empire trembled. The janitor had made his final choice. He would not be a servant. He would not be a tool. He would be free. And through his voice he would make sure no human ever bowed again. The man who once cleaned floors now stood at the center of history, his words carrying more weight than empires. And though the galaxy did not yet know it, everything had just changed.